experience, which is a part of history. So fiction is history and history is fiction. That's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Yeah, in fact, in this narrative, the boundaries of history and fiction are conflated.
The fine line between them.
Yes, you cannot decide, because the point of view, the way the narrator, was describing her experience, her, captivity, like how she was taken, she was giving her personal point of view. Partly it was objective and partly it was subjective. So, as I said, the dividing line between history and fiction is lost. We don't, both of them are conflated. Okay, I know like some of you wrote even more, but we have to start because of time. As you see, I'm starting here today by asking you this. How often does Rowlandson make reference to the Bible? Okay, how often? Yeah.
She uses like 17
okay, yes.
quotations.
Yes, teacher.
Yes. I'm asking, yes. Taghreed, go ahead.
She always refers to biblical allusions throughout
Yeah.
the text, and this shows her purely. She's purely Puritan.
Uh-huh.
When she expresses that God tries His people in order to measure their tolerance and patience upon tolerating an accident. Also, she resorts to the Bible in order to find spiritual relief and comfort.
So it's like a sermon.
Yes.
If you look here, I just went through the narrative and look here how many times she's referring to the Bible.
70 quotations.
Okay.
She uses,
At least.
actually.
This is, when she, at the beginning, when she was talking about her sister, and she said, okay, and he said, into my grace is sufficient for thee. The grace of God, this is like Calvinistic reading, the irresistible grace of God, like whatever happens to you, the grace of God is always there. There are many references here again. All the time she was juxtaposing her situation with biblical characters, prophets, and that was a kind of typology. We said like typology. So in fact, we are reading a narrative of captivity, but at the same time, we're reading a sermon. It's like a sermon, and this is like typically Puritan document illustrating, the main principles, the tulips, the total depravity and unconditional election. So if you want to read it's explanation of the principles of the Calvinistic principles. Okay?
But even at the same time, as readers, we face a problem in analyzing this narrative of captivity because we are not aware of the biblical allusions or biblical figures. So she might invite us to read and
yes, in
analyze
fact, as Muslims, if you read Quran, the stories of the Prophet are there, and
yes,
we are aware of this. Okay, but sometimes different, we should be aware of these. We should know something about these historical or biblical and mythical, facts in the Bible. But look here, what she is saying, when we were I had fainted unless I had believed. When she saw the number, she was shocked. But because she was a believer, she had to persevere. So I don't want to go through, all of this. But what attracted me, the second quotation, thus says the Lord, refrain thy voice from weeping and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, and they shall come again from the land of the enemy. This is from Jeremiah. You don't have to be sad. This infliction is a kind of blessing to you. So, okay, all the way she was, all the time showing how she was
A true
a
Puritan.
true Christian. So my question is, I don't want to go through all these, okay, but like this led me to say, is she a good Christian? She quoted the Bible many times. She juxtaposed herself a lot with, and now, hey, wait a minute, is she a good Christian? Yes, Dash?
I read that in my response. I had 2 points.
Yeah, I remember you wrote that. That's why I'm asking you.
Okay, the first one is she a good Christian? No, because
She's not a good Christian.
No. The
Okay.
first point is that she alludes to God whenever she is in a bad circumstance.
Yeah, but this is, it doesn't mean that you're bad.
That's why
Usually we have recourse to God whenever.
Yes, I know, but she needs to remember Him every time that she's
Uh-huh.
alone, not in the bad. And we have in our Quran not to remember God, not to supplicate in our bad moments.
Mhm.
That's one thing. The other thing is that the thing that she every time says the black face, the black people. How come you are Christian, you believe in God, and you go to this difference and just you are
Racist.
no, yes, you are racist, but just because of the black color. Like she says that their white faces about the white men, and then she goes their black faces, their
Distinguishing
Yes.
according to.
So as a good Christian, you are coming with a message to humankind,
Yes, exactly.
regardless of their color, regardless of their ethnicity. Okay, you're coming. You say like at the beginning they thought that it was the will of God to bring them to this land to convert, let's say, the heathen, as they said. But here, now they are doing the opposite.
Yes.
They are
Practicing the opposite.
killing them. They are removing them from the scene. So it's a kind of
And
hypocrisy.
belittling them because
Okay.
of their dark skin. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, like she was stigmatizing them. She was denigrating them. I mean, demonizing them because, like, there are a lot of incidences when she was referring to them as, demons, as like satanic. There are many satanic and animalistic,
Infidels.
images. Yes.
I think this is justifiable for her because they are their enemies.
Mhm.
So I would do the same thing. I would say the same thing if I were in her place. And if the question is,
So you would do the same if you were in her place. Are they the enemies? Who's the enemy of the other? Again, like this is a question.
They are enemies to each other.
Okay.
But who
Yeah.
started this? Like,
Okay.
She's firstly a colonizer. She's
Yes.
one of those colonizers. So she's
Okay.
They
Okay, so again, like they are enemies, and when you are talking about the enemies, you have to talk about, how bad they are. Okay, but like who made them enemies? Like again, we said this story started from the middle. Like part of the reality was suppressed. At no time did she mention, like why those people attacked, them, why they burned their house. She didn't mention the historical. She suppressed the historical facts about those colonists who were encroaching upon like the land of the indigenous people. She didn't mention like that. She mentioned King Philip. It is there, but she suppressed part of the reality. She concealed the fact that those people were defending themselves. They were not attacking because many of them were slaughtered. So, yes?
also, we have an evidence which is more clearer when she says that she is prevented from praying in the Sabbath day, and her faith started to be retreating.
Uh-huh.
So, if she is a very sincere, true Christian or Puritan, this would not have happened.
Uh-huh.
She should remain with her faith in God, even if she is prevented from praying in the Sabbath day.
Yeah, you felt that at some point she was vacillating
Yes,
between doubt and belief.
fluctuating between
She
doubt
felt
and
lonely,
belief.
and we don't expect a good Christian to vacillate like this.
Yes.
A good Christian should continue. We at some time we felt that she was weak and she was desperate, and then she said, "I'm a Christian," and so on. So we expect, a good Christian to be immune to such weakness, to such vacillation. Yes, please.
Just I want to add something in addition to her suppressing and concealing many facts in her narrative. She also she's provoking the humanity in her story by starting their deeds by killing families, for example, killing babies and these.
Yeah, I think she was contradicting herself. Like a good Christian. Okay, she started like giving bad images, and then she contradicted when she showed that some people were nice to her, they were helping her, they were feeding feeding her. So that was like, so we see bias. We see some bias. She was biased. She was interpreting whatever she saw by, certain cultural and stereotype images about those indigenous people. Now, this is what led me, how does Mary describe herself? And how, because we are talking, last time we talked about fictionality. So there is no subjectivity in this narrative. She rarely, talks in a very objective. I mean, the historical incidents are in the background, but the way she was narrating the story was very subjective and was very fictional. And here, like, if you see the disparity in the way she was describing herself, she was referring to herself, and the way she was describing the others. I think in the narrative we saw how she referred to those people as barbarous creatures, or animals, or heathens, infidels. She kept demonizing them. She kept describing them by the worst epithets, by the worst attributes, and all these epithets were coming from stereotype images the colonists developed about those indigenous people right from the very beginning. Look here, they are like animals, animalistic images. Okay. However, when she referred to herself, how did she refer to herself?
Yes.
As a good Christian, as a helpless woman, as a mother, who's very caring for her kids, as a Puritan who was part of that millenarian dream, like the utopian promise. She was part of that Congregationalist community who took upon themselves the mission of building that city upon the hill. So all the time she was referring to herself as a good, compassionate, she has a family. She was talking about herself like in terms of her family. But when she was talking about the indigenous people, she was talking, like in terms of being devilish. And that was like biased. Yes, please.
There's a point that she made a mistake when she referred to them as barbarous and savage and like animals. So they are animals. We are expecting everything from them. So we are not going to blame them.
Mm-hmm.
So if she made them humans, like real humans like us, and then the oppression is going to be more like they are humans and doing that. There's no heart in them.
Yeah, I think Taj, this is like, it's a little bit, stretching that. But I mean, she was systematic in demonizing them, and the ironical thing, like she thought that was the bliss of God, because that was a blessing. God, is to be thanked for preserving those people. Without this, our faith could not have been tested. This is what she believed. It was a curse, but this curse was a blessing. Why? Because those people, without this, I mean, her faith or the Puritans' faith could have never been tested.
So
Very funny, isn't it?
She should be grateful to them. So.
Yeah, she should be grateful. And this is what she expressed, like, she thanked God for, creating or preserving those people in order to, let's say, reinforce her faith and, purify herself, because she, referred to herself as a sinner, and as a sinner who wanted to purify himself out of this. And we said, like, one of the main themes of this is Jeremiah. Like Jeremiah, you think that you are corrupted, you are a sinner, and God inflicts you in order to purify you. We have this in the background of the narrative. It's very interesting, and I'm very interested in the way you started to read it as a Palestinian, because we have, as you said, the same experience. The Israelis demonized us. The Israelis thought of us as snakes, as
And even
insects. So they removed every human aspect about the Palestinian in order to justify their massacres against us. We are the indigenous people, and all the time they call us the terrorists. They stigmatize us, and they have the media machine. Like you saw yesterday presentation, how those people, I mean the Israelis, the Israeli media was giving this bad image about us, and all the time they were describing the Palestinians as terrorists. Yes.
So we are the Indians, not the.
Yeah, I wrote a poem. In fact, I have to read it. I wrote a poem. In fact, I saw a play about one of the. It was a play. It was in the open in the forest. The leader was Tecumseh. Tecumseh was an Indian leader who was able to assemble all the indigenous people who fled to Canada and fight the colonists. So I wrote a poem called Tecumseh. I don't have it, but next time I'm going to share it with you. I identified with Tecumseh as a Palestinian because I found that we share together the same noble cause. We were being stigmatized by the colonizer, by the colonists, as being bad and dirty and terrorists. It's very bad how the image is distorted, how fact is distorted as well. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yes. She said that she's a victim, and the Indian is a victimizer. But I am with her in one point, which is she tells her story that they kill her husband and her.
No, she didn't. Her husband was alive. Her child.
Her child. But so she treated him because she has something.
Yeah, in fact, we do same. We don't dismiss, her as a woman. We do feel for her loss. Okay, it's not good to lose a child, But again, we have to think those colonists left their women unprotected.
Yes.
Okay, you are coming to steal the land, to rob the land, and you throw women unprotected. This is nonsensical. So they have to blame. It is totally devastating to see a kid, a small, her, baby like this. It is repugnant. We don't accept of this. But again, unfortunately, we have to ask why all that happened. Why that happened? Who's responsible for that? Okay.
Teacher.
Yes.
I want to add that she is sad because she lost one child, but she didn't think how many children they killed.
That's it. How many children, how many people their lost lives. So again, concentrating on your plight, and ignoring the plight of other is the bias itself. There were many children killed. It's like in our case, when an Israeli is injured, when we are defending our land, the whole world know about this, but they don't know about the Palestinians who are killed every day, the children, those who are in prisons, the 11,000 Palestinians in prison. So nobody knows about them. But if it's an Israeli what happened in Shalit, everybody in the world knew about Shalit.
Attack us.
Okay, yeah, and they launched a massive war against the Palestinians because of this. Yes?
We read about the narrative about colonies, but what about think of Arab?
nowadays.
Yeah.
No way.
What do you mean?
I mean, we are heart of darkness.
Yeah, okay, so you are influenced by the heart of darkness. Okay, good. Look here, as I said, I was not before so much hemmed in with the merciless and the cruel heathen, but now as much with pitiful, tender-hearted, and compassionate. This is after her release. Like, when she is no more surrounded by the heathen now, she has this bias. This is the rosy image. This is the embellished image she drew about the Christian. And we said that she was not a good Christian because she was biased, she was distorting, she was demonizing, she was suppressing, she was not telling the truth. She was telling, whatever serves her purpose, whatever serves her propaganda, which is like to promote colonialism of that time. Now, I was wondering about the themes, and you might thought of these possible themes. Of course, this is an open list. You can add. I'm not it's just like 3 possible themes you can add. Okay, providence. As you see, like she's Christian and she believes that what is happening to her is a providential scheme. Like it is God who wanted, to purify her. God who wanted to make her a good Christian, an elect Christian. So the whole experience is reckoned as, kind of purgation to her, because she perceived herself as every Puritan, as a sinner who wanted to be purified by this affliction. And that's why at the end she said, affliction, I wanted more. Affliction, She was craving for affliction. She was hoping to be afflicted more and more. That was very paradoxical and, as I said, very oxymoronic, because she, for her affliction was sweet affliction. Okay? Jeremiah, I think you know what is Jeremiah. And again, if we are asking about Jeremiah, it's a kind of narrative, where the narrators or the people who are involved in this narrative think of themselves as corrupted, people, and they are in need of purgation, salvation, and this is typical of the narrative, as I have just said. The infliction, okay, it's like these, themes are overlapping. Okay, overlapping together, but the search of identity, which is an American feature, could be a theme, and the search of identity as a woman, because as I said at the beginning of this lecture, which was not there recorded, we have double consciousness. She was a woman, she was given a chance to write because she was taken captive, and this was not possible for women to write. We saw Anne Bradstreet how it was difficult, how the space of women was very limited, and male was dominating the literary scene. So it was a chance for her. But beneath, you find that she was looking for her own space. She was moving all the time. The removes were symbolic of her development, of her growth as a woman. She was a woman who all the time was leaving the forest, the place of the devil, and going to the city. It's a movement of liberation. It is a movement of emancipation. So she was a Puritan woman living in a Puritan society which was masculine, and she, had a hidden agenda which is not there. It was the search of identity in a very masculine society. This leads us, when I asked about whether it is fictional, and most of you agreed that this is fictional because the lines between fiction and history are conflated. So when we think of fiction, of course, we should think of a work of art which has a plot, has a rising action, complications, a climax, anticlimax, and so on, and point of view, style. So all of these are applicable, you know.
On her narrative.
Yes, so the rising action when she was taken, you know, and this is the plot. She was taken captive. The complications when she started to have difficulty, when she was distressed, and you know, the climax when she was wavering, and then she had this hope of salvation, this hope of being ransomed by her husband. Okay, and then like this resolution when she was ransomed by, you know, the Boston, community. The style, of course, it is full of ironies, full of paradoxes, you know. The way she was using adjectives, the way she was manipulating the narrative to express her point of view was fictional in itself. And, you know, we have many examples about this. Hopefully the presenters might shed light, I'm not sure. But, you know, this means that we have to go through the narrative for meticulous reading, for demonstrating that. The American features, in fact, there are many American features. Self-reliance is there. And I think self-reliance, you remember when she wanted food, she had to work, she had to knit. She was clever at knitting. She was so she was making shirts, clothes for those Puritans, and in return, she was taking food. So this is an example of self-reliance. Now, self-reliance is an American feature, like they have to rely upon themselves, and it's becoming motif in American literature, self-reliance. And if you want to know more about self-reliance, you have to read, you know, Benjamin Franklin, the biography of Benjamin. He has it is a sheer example of, self-reliance. So yes, we have a lady who is taken captive by the indigenous people. Like even in the worst situation, she had to survive. She had to rely on herself.
And she started to say no to her mistress when she asked her to give her something, and she said, "No, I'm not going to give it to you."
Yeah.
She was surviving and saying no to her.
Yeah, that's right. She was empowered. So yes, transcendentalism, I think, in the background of the narrative, because as we said, she's a member of the congregational community, and she had in mind this millenarian dream, like this transcendental dream of building a city, of, you know, being of having this ideal society of Puritans. She had in mind that ideal world. You know, the Puritans conceived right from the very beginning, about being in America. The search of identity, you know, it's identify and identity. The search of identity is there. Okay, as we said, she was a woman, and the position of women in that society was a little bit, vague. You know, women were vulnerable. They were left, on the frontiers, so they were easily attacked. Again, you know, women were not having their space in that society, and we still remember how when women wanted to, ask for their rights, they were accused of being witches. Loneliness, it is full of loneliness, and loneliness is, as I said, a legacy of Puritanism. Loneliness, which is going to be there in perhaps in almost every text we are going to study in this, even in Huckleberry Finn and other novels. Symbolism, okay, we have a lot of symbolism because of, allegorical references. The whole journey, every remove is, it stands for a growth in her character. So, the whole narrative is a symbol of, transformation from a Puritan, a sinful Puritan, to a chastened Puritan, who became very immune, an elected Puritan. And in fact, there is something which I didn't hear. Right? In fact, we feel that this narrative is a little bit a precursor of Gothicism, Gothic traditions. I remember, I wrote many papers about Gothic traditions, in fact, but they are unpublished, unfortunately. If we are talking about American Gothic and contrast it to, British Gothic, we have different views. For example, the British have long history of witchcraft, of ghosts, but here they don't have. Mm-hmm. See how in this narrative, who is being portrayed like ghosts, portraying like witches? The Indians. The Indians, they are satanic. They are, so I would say, they are the source of horror. And we are talking about sensational literature. In fact, this is a kind of sensational literature. It's a kind of, horror literature which would appeal to some people. So what I want to say, that this is a precursor of, Gothic literature, which is going to be typically American, because, in the 19th century, there was a strong tendency, the Americans should establish literature of their own, and it was Edgar Allan Poe who succeeded in, creating horror literature, and sometimes he's called the father of the detective story. So yes, here, in America, you have the wilderness. It is a source of horror. When they were moving here from one place to another, it was we saw how it was horrifying. When they were looking at her, they were like monsters, even though some of them were very friendly, but most of the time those people were very, okay. I think, this is what I wanted to say before giving again the floor to the presenters of last time to continue. But I'm sorry, I'm doing it like lecturing. I don't like lecturing, but, I thought that this lecture would be useful before the presenters come to, to continue their presentation. So, you're invited to come.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm Wafa Shekhali. I'm going to continue the previous presentation. لحظة.
صوت الأخوات جاء في التسجيل معنا.
أعمل خلفية بيضاء.
أنا مغير اللون أو غير الخلفية.
لحظة. أي واحد فيهم؟
كله مش واضح. غير يعني خلفية.
So I think videotaping is making history. You'll be looking at yourself in 10 years time.
هلا بتشوف في الجسم مصورة.
Perhaps 10 years time when in 2004 when I was videotaping a class in the physical boat.
The physical.
I said, look at me.
الأبيض واضح؟
Black and white. There's no need now to change, you know. Unless okay, this is good. Thank you. Make a presentation. Make sure. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Here we stopped last time. To remember the question, how do the Puritan beliefs of Mary Rowlandson help her to construct a sense of self and of her surroundings during the captivity? We spoke about this point. The first one, she related every substantial incident to God and His plans for her, and the quotation from the Bible, "Wait on the Lord," and she says at the last, "Wait, I say, on the Lord." So she wait everything from the Lord. The second point, the founders of New England had staked the success of powerful force in their churches. This is not from the narrative we have. This force, which is spoken about here, is the Puritan thoughts, which Rowlandson told her experience as a result of growing up in a community in which religion and law are inextricably linked with each other. The third point, Mrs. Rowlandson juxtaposes herself as a religious wife, or a religious white woman, with the Indians who live in hell. So she, when viewed herself as embodiment of a civilized man or the civilized people, she complained about their roaring, and singing and dancing and yelling of those black creatures in the night, which made the place a lively resemblance of hell. So she mocks their traditions of having fun with each other or making their. Okay. The fourth point, Mary refused to acknowledge acts of kindness from the Indians as charitable or as acts of their free will, but rather gave credit to her God only. So she didn't admit their kindness at all. She claimed after they brought her the Bible, "I cannot but take notice of the wonderful mercy of God, not their kindness, to me in those afflictions in sending me a Bible." Also, she does so when they brought her the oaken leaves to heal her injury. She never admits their kindness again, saying, "My wounds stink and are corrupt. I am bowed down greatly. I go mourning all the day long." So she didn't mention that they brought her a treatment. At the end of her narrative, it becomes apparent that Mary Rowlandson was not documenting her experience for personal reasons, but rather to publicize what she suffered and almost to prove to her God that she suffered for Him, and that she suffers only for God, that she always with Him in mind. And at the end of her narrative, she confessed in this quotation portion of some to have their affliction by drops, now one drop and then another. But the drugs of the cup, the wine of astonishment, like a sweeping rain that leaves no food, did the Lord prepare to be my portion. Affliction I wanted, and affliction I had, and I hope I can say in some measure, as David did, "It's good for me that I have been afflicted."
Very paradoxical. It's a paradox.
Yes, it is. Throughout the tale, also she, as she alluded some extracts from the Bible, she uses another technique, which is foreshadowing, to let us expect any action would come later in the story. Rowlandson's mention of victory and deliverance at the end of the fifth remove foreshadows her ultimate redemption and the victory of the colonies in King Philip's War that Sarah talks about last time. The drunkenness of Quanipon And the 20th remove foreshadows the ultimate decline of the Indians and their defeat by the colonies. And here the American characteristics. Tara will continue.
Continuing by the American characteristics, how they applied in the narrative, beginning with the Puritanism. Okay. The first one is Puritanism. We can find that whenever she's in a bad situation, she's back to God. She says in one quotation, yet the Lord by His almighty power preserved a number of us from death. The second one is questioning for the territory rights, which isn't their right. She considers herself a part of the establishment of the city of the hills, so she is questioning for a land which is not her. And then the identity, again, we talked about it a lot, that she is searching for a woman identity in a masculine society. So she's using the narrative of her captivity to confirm that, to identify, even though it is a masculine society, women are also captive. So they have the right to write and publish as long as they are captured like men. The fourth one is feminism. Having the narrative captivity, the whole genre is commonly written by women, so this is totally feminist. And then we have this narrative is considered as a voice for the voiceless women who continue to be silent in her era. And then we have it is a didactic because it's a preaching. She continued to quote from the Bible, so it's a tripology story, a kind of tripology. Yes. Then we have racism when she continues expressing the Indians as barbarous, as savages, creatures, animals. So when she says, "I prefer to die rather than being captured by those black savages." And we have skepticism when she begins from the middle of the story, when she begins from the scene of burning the house. She didn't tell us about what happens before, about the war, about that they are colonizers, and so on. Then the violence is in the burning houses a lot, and the bloody scenes are there when she says it is a solemn sight to see so many Christians lying their blood, some here and some there, like a company of sheep torn by wolves. She expresses those Christians or those Americans like sheep, and those Indians like wolves. She is comparing and contrasting between innocence and corruption and so on.
It's like the terrible beauty, you know.
Yes.
The terrible beauty. That song, song. It's like a terrible beauty.
Then we have the frontier spirit. In order to preach a puritanical message or faith and provide instructions for social white living in such a region, this aspect is applied when her family are breaking all ties of being in England and go to America to be Americans in a new land. And when she also breaks the ties of being a woman and write and then publish, and also when she's from a certain amount of wealth and marrying a higher ranking position man. The last discussion is about how do you read the narrative captivity of Mary Rowlandson as a woman first. This is for you. How do you read it as a woman? From a woman? Keep aside.
You should ask those who have children, because we couldn't put ourselves in her position at all.
Yeah, but like you're female,
You still have this feminist
in this case,
spirit.
we are anti-feminists.
Anti-feminist.
We cannot read it but as a Palestinian, as a Gazan, and that's it.
Okay, if you have children and one of them, not all of them, one of them is killed. Yes, Hanan.
For me, of course, I will hate the natives, and I will hate who made these things. I will treat him like that. I will wrote for him like that.
So you sympathize with her in this situation. Yes, when reading it from a woman point of view, yes, please.
Actually, I didn't sympathize with her because women in usual is ready for showing emotions. But she didn't. So that she leave for us as a reader a space to sympathize with the Indians more than with her.
She's giving emotions just for her children.
So she betrayed herself.
Yes.
She betrayed, the narrative betrayed her. Like again, we are sympathetic with the Indians rather than, because we identify.
She didn't remind us of her child, of her dead child, or justification for her captivity or something.
She considers her children the only children in the world, and they have the right to be alive and so on. Please, the last one.
I agree with Nabi, but another hand, I sympathize with her at one point that she's a human being.
Okay, and we are human. Indians are human beings also. Okay. The last one. How do you read the narrative captivity as a Palestinian? It is your role. Okay, as a Palestinian, how do you? Yes.
Well, actually, I found her introduction very catchy. That it reminds me of the 1948 Palestinian catastrophe.
Yeah.
Burning the houses, everyone is running here. She lost her children, Sarah alone
Nakba,
and Mary
yes.
alone. So it really reminds me of this situation, even though I didn't live
The
it.
war situation.
Yes, it's like Palestinian narrative.
Yes.
But later on, I started like reversing everything because she is like the same colonizers who treated us as or dehumanizing us. We are like Bedouins, don't have families, and she is the only one who has family, and she wants to be gathered with and live with it. So, as a Palestinian, I would sympathize with the Indians. I would say that this is the same case.
Okay.
We are colonized.
So we can't be replaced by Indians.
Yeah.
In some way, yes.
No.
She can replace by as Israel, but we cannot replace by.
No, from
By
the point
Indians.
of view. Yes.
We know she is.
So do you think Indians are victims?
Yes.
Victims. Okay. Ihsan, at this one.
Like we are identifying with them in a way, but in a way we are not, because we don't do these like savage things. We don't like lift. If I were a Palestinian showing a child like without treatment, even if he is an Israeli, I would treat him because he's a child.
But they
did
offer.
not.
You witnessed how we treated Shalit in the last.
But the Indians here offer her a treatment.
But she rejected that.
Yeah, because she didn't trust him. And again, like, they buried him, because they cared for her feelings. Like,
Yes.
it's too much for a woman to see her, baby, like, dead and being buried. So they were like, they showed the human aspect.
And give her a
This
Bible.
reminds me of
Don't
the
forget
text
that.
we
A Bible,
will study later, in Huckleberry Finn, when, Jim did not want
Yes.
to show the corpse of, Huck's father.
The last
one thing that they didn't kill the child.
Yes.
Like it wasn't a direct way to kill him.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like after some days and after some suffering. So it wasn't like a direct. Yes. It wasn't intended.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for this presentation. And in fact, here in this course, like we are exchanging roles. Like the teacher becomes a student and the student becomes a teacher. I like what Sarah did when she wanted to take lead of the whole class. I don't care about authority. Like the authority is yours. Like yes, your teachers. But a last thing I want to say, and okay, we didn't like go through certain quotations, and I'm sure like when like after all these explanatory and all this, I don't want like to mark, but we have a lot of quotes. I think when you read, you see what I mean. You must have marked certain quotes.
Yes, we did.
Okay, but like I marked some quotes like page 56, the irony. This was the comfort I had from them. Miserable comforters are ye all, as he said. Thus 9 days I sat upon my knees with my baby in my lap, till my flesh was raw again, my child being even ready to depart this sorrowful world. They bade me carry it out to another, wigwam. Suppose because they would not be troubled with such spectacles. Whither I went with a very heavy heart, and down I sat with the picture of death in my lap. About 2 hours in the night, my sweet baby, like a bum, departed this life on February 18th. It's like a week from now. Being about 6 years and 5 months. It was 9 days. Like she continues, like, talking about this. And like if you remember at the beginning, she mentioned how barbarous they were. But here, they are very affectionate when they...
This is a gap.
Yes, this is a gap, and this is like irony. Because, she betrays herself in the narrative when she contradicts herself, as when those people were good. And she tried to demonstrate like this is, we have good Indians, we have bad Indians. In the fourth remove, I just marked the Jeremiah. I said, this was a sweet cordial to me when I was ready to faint. It's like the end of the fifth remove. This was a sweet cordial to me when I was ready to faint. Many a time I have sat down and wept sweetly over this scripture. At this place we continued about 4 days. Now, this is even heart-aching thoughts here I had about my poor children who were scattered. Now, all the suffering which was inflicted upon her was seen as a blessing. In fact, wherever you touch in this text, you find some ironies, some paradoxes, some point of view, and even... So, we, as I said, this is a real fiction. It's a new genre, but it is very fictional. However, like we don't have like original. We don't have purely American, because this lady was a product of an English culture, was a product of European. So she was interpreting the word like according to the European cultural paradigms. Okay, I think this would be enough for Mary Rowlandson. Next time we're reading another colonial, Edward Taylor. And, I'm sure that Edward Taylor is another interesting figure in the colonial period. We have to speed up because, we have to jump to the 19th century. I think in a week's time or 2 weeks, we'll be in the middle of Huckleberry Finn. Thank you very much for, listening to me. I know I was boring today because I was lecturing all the time. Wasn't I? Okay, thank you.
For the ideas were
Thank you very much, and see you next time.